The sign was half buried in weeds, the paint faded and cracked from decades of rain. But you could still read the words if you leaned close enough. "Do not cross Hollow Creek after midnight." "Creepy," laughed Jason, snapping a picture with his phone. But this is where the local boogeyman comes out. His friends groaned, but followed him anyway. It was late September, one of those chilly West Virginia nights when the woods felt too quiet. Like every animal knew something the humans didn't. The group of 5 college friends had decided to camp out in the mountains during fall break, cheap thrills, beer, and a weekend with no Wi-Fi. They picked Hollow Creek because it was beautiful during the day, with its silver water winding through black rock and the tall, bone-white sycamore trees stretching up like watchtowers. But as night fell, the creek changed. The water ran darker, like ink. The trees bent in closer, their pale bark glowing faintly in the moonlight, like rows of crooked gravestones. And then there was the laughter. It started faint like a radio in the distance, voices carried on the wind. At first, no one spoke about it. They just sat around the fire, nursing their beers, pretending they didn't hear it. But it grew louder, high-pitched, giggling, the unmistakable sound of children playing. Only it was 12:01, and man, they were 10 miles from the nearest town. "Okay, tell me someone else hears that," said Leah, setting her beer down. Her dark eyes darted toward the creek, where the moonlight shimmered on the water. "Probably some locals messing with us," Jason shrugged, but his laugh sounded forced. "Or, hillbilly kids with nothing better to do." "No," whispered Marcy, hugging her blanket tighter around her shoulders. "It's not normal." The others turned to her. Marcy had grown up only 2 counties over. Unlike the others, she'd heard the stories. Her grandmother used to warn her, "Don't cross the water after midnight. Don't even look at it." She told them now, her voice low. "They say Hollow Creek has children in it, drowned children. From floods, accidents, maybe worse. And if you hear them laughing," she swallowed hard, "it means they've noticed you." Jason rolled his eyes, though he avoided looking at the water. "Ghost kids? Come on, you really believe that crap?" Another burst of giggling echoed across the creek. This time it was closer, much closer. The group fell silent. They all heard it now, small voices, happy, bubbling with joy. But there was no splashing, no movement in the water. Just laughter carried through the trees like smoke. "Okay, screw this," muttered Derek, standing up. He was the tallest of the group, a former high school quarterback with more muscle than brains. "I'll prove it's nothing." "Derek, don't," Marcy hissed, grabbing his sleeve. But he shook her off and picked up the flashlight. The beam cut across the creek, blindingly bright against the black water. At first there was nothing, just ripples, stones, shadows of trees leaning over the bank. Then the light passed over something pale, a child's face. It was half submerged, eyes wide open, hair floating like weeds around it, and it was smiling. Derek gasped and nearly dropped the flashlight. "Jesus Christ, did you see that?" The others crowded around. Jason snatched the flashlight and swung it across the water. Nothing, just black ripples again. But the laughter grew louder, and now it was all around them. The air turned damp and heavy, like fog rolling in from the creek. Leah coughed and swore the smell of wet soil filled her lungs, like the scent of graves being opened. "Let's go back to the car," she whispered. "This isn't funny anymore." Jason didn't argue. He packed up the beer cooler with shaking hands. Marcy was already shoving blankets into her backpack. That was when they heard the splash. Not small, like a rock being thrown. Big, heavy, like something pulling itself out of the water. The flashlight beam trembled as Jason aimed it toward the sound. The water rippled violently, though no one was there. Then, little hands, pale, wrinkled, waterlogged hands gripped the rocks at the bank, one by one, dozens of them. "Oh my God," Leah whispered. Children were climbing out of the creek. Their faces were pale as candle wax, their eyes bloated and swollen, their lips stretched in unnatural smiles. Water streamed from their mouths as they giggled and stumbled forward on unsteady legs. One of them opened its mouth wider, and the sound that came out wasn't laughter anymore. It was a shriek, high-pitched and piercing, like a drowning child gasping for air. The group ran. The forest swallowed their screams as they tore through the trees, branches slashing their faces. Jason clutched the flashlight, its beam bouncing wildly, illuminating flashes of white bark and dark earth. Behind them, the shrieking multiplied, joined by the thunder of splashing footsteps. Marcy stumbled and nearly fell, but Derek yanked her back up. "Keep moving," he shouted. They didn't stop until their lungs burned. Finally, Jason dared to look back. The creek was far behind them now. The forest was silent again. Jesus Christ," Leah panted, doubled over. What the hell was that? No one answered, but Marcy knew. She had always known. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't cross the water after midnight. Don't even look at it." They didn't stop running until the trees thinned and they reached the narrow dirt road where they deparked the van. The vehicle sat in the moonlight, streaked with dust, a comforting sight, something human in the middle of endless forest. Jason fumbled with the keys, nearly dropping them as his hands shook. Get in, get in, get in." They piled inside, slamming the doors. The interior smelled faintly of gasoline and stale fast food, suddenly the sweetest scents in the world. Jason turned the ignition. The van coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Everyone let out a shaky laugh of relief. "Holy hell," Derek muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Did you see those things?" What even were they?" "They were kids," Leah whispered, her voice trembling. "Or they used to be." Marcy sat in the back, silent, staring at her mud-caked hands. Jason glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Okay, you grew up around here, Marcy. What the hell is going on?" She didn't look up. "I told you. The stories are true." "Stories?" Derek barked. "You call that a story?" "They drowned," Marcy said quietly. "Years ago. Maybe decades. They say the creek keeps them. The water doesn't let go." She lifted her eyes, glistening in the dark. "And if you're stupid enough to cross it after midnight, it notices you." Leah swore under her breath. "So what, we're cursed now?" No one answered. The van jolted down the dirt road, tires bumping against potholes. The headlights carved tunnels of light through the black woods. For the first time, Jason felt something like safety creeping back into his bones. They were moving. They were leaving. But then the radio clicked on by itself. Static hissed through the speakers, sharp and loud. Jason cursed and slapped the knob, trying to shut it off, but the static shifted. Beneath it came a noise. Laughter. Children's laughter. Everyone froze. "No," Leah whispered. The sound grew louder, filling the van, a chorus of high-pitched giggles bubbling like water boiling. The headlights flickered. The engine groaned, choking as if the fuel had turned thick. Jason slammed the gas pedal. The van lurched forward, coughing. "Come on, don't do this." Something darted across the road. A small figure, child-sized, pale as bone. Its head twisted too far to one side, hair dripping, arms limp. Jason swerved violently, tires skidding on gravel. The van spun sideways, then slammed to a halt in the middle of the road. Everyone screamed. When they looked back, the road was empty. The engine wouldn't start again. Jason tried once, twice, 10 times. The key turned, the lights flickered, but the motor just coughed like a dying animal. Derek swore loudly, slamming his fist against the dashboard. "We're screwed. Absolutely screwed. We need to walk," Leah said firmly, her voice shaking but determined. "The highway's only, 5 miles? We can make it." "In the dark?" Jason shot back. "With those things out there, what choice do we have?" She snapped. Silence. Even Derek couldn't argue. Finally, Jason killed the headlights. Grab what you can carry. We moved together. Fast. The woods were worse now. The silence pressed in on them like a weight. Every crunch of leaves under their boots felt deafening. They didn't talk. They didn't dare. But the laughter followed them. It slithered through the branches, echoing from tree to tree. Sometimes it was ahead of them, sometimes behind, sometimes both at once. At times it sounded playful, innocent. Other times it warped into something broken, like a drowning gurgle forced into a giggle. Derek's flashlight beam shook across the dirt path, catching glimpses of twisted branches and shadows that seemed to lean closer the longer you stared. Leah kept muttering under her breath, a prayer, maybe, or just begging. Jason kept glancing at Marcy. She was pale, trembling, but her eyes were hard with some grim knowledge the others didn't share. What aren't you telling us? Jason hissed finally, unable to stand it. Marcy didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "They don't stop." "What?" "The kids, the drowned ones. Once they see you, they never stop." Jason's stomach sank. The path curved sharply, and up ahead something glimmered in the moonlight. At first, Jason thought it was just water pulled from rain. But as they drew closer, his throat went dry. The creek, flowing black and silent, cutting straight across their path like a living thing. "No," Leah whispered. "We went the wrong way." We circled back. The water rippled softly. Something moved beneath it. Small hands pressed against the surface, pale shapes gliding just beneath the current. Faces rose slowly, eyes wide, lips smiling with water pouring from them. "Back," Jason hissed. "Go back." But behind them, in the trees, came more laughter. Dozens of voices, closer. Derek swore and grabbed a rock, hurling it into the creek. "Get away from us!" The water exploded with motion. Children surged upward, their bodies dripping, skin swollen and sagging. They dragged themselves onto the bank, barefoot and stumbling, grins stretching too wide. One of them opened its mouth, and dark creek water spilled out, splashing onto the dirt. Leah screamed. "Run!" Jason shouted. But the path back was already filling with pale figures, stepping silently out of the trees, eyes fixed on them. They were surrounded. "Don't look at them," Marcy whispered, clutching Leah's arms so hard her nails dug into skin. Don't let them know you see them." It was too late. One of the children stood only a few feet away now, water dripping steadily from its hair. It tilted its head, staring at Jason with lifeless black eyes. And then, smiling wider than any human could, it whispered in a voice like gurgling water, "Stay and play." For a moment, no one moved. The pale children stood in the trees and along the creek bank, their dripping bodies glowing faintly in the moonlight, smiling, always smiling. Then the chorus of voices rose together, giggles, shrieks, gurgling laughter that sounded like drowning throats. Jason snapped, "Move." He shoved Marcy forward, grabbing Leah by the wrist. Derek charged ahead, swinging the flashlight like a weapon. They broke through the line of waterlogged children, shoving them aside, ignoring the cold, clammy skin that brushed their arms. The kids didn't fight back. They just laughed harder, reaching with grasping hands, tugging at clothes and hair as the group sprinted up the dirt path. Leah screamed as one of them snagged her ankle. Jason yanked her free, nearly pulling her shoe off. He didn't dare look back. The path led uphill, twisting through sycamores that looked skeletal in the moonlight. The air grew heavier, colder. Jason's chest burned. He couldn't tell if it was from running or from the stench of rot that now hung in the air. Derek stumbled ahead, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. There's a cabin." Through the trees, a small structure appeared, rotting wood, collapsed porch, a roof sagging with moss. It looked abandoned, but it was shelter. They barreled inside, slamming the broken door shut. Dust and mold filled their lungs. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor. Jason shoved a chair under the doorknob. Derek pressed his back against the wood, chest heaving. Outside, the laughter circled them. Children's footsteps pattered across the porch, across the walls, even on the roof. Marcy curled into a corner, rocking back and forth, whispering to herself. Leah gripped Jason's arm. "We're dead." "We're dead, aren't we?" Jason didn't answer. He just listened to the giggles pressing in from every side. The first knock came minutes later. Knock, knock. Soft, almost polite. Everyone froze. Knock, knock. It came from the door, then from the window, then from the walls themselves. Little hands, rapping, tapping, everywhere at once. Derek snapped. He grabbed a rusty poker from the fireplace. "I'm not waiting around to die," he snarled, yanking the chair away from the door. "Derek, don't," Marcy cried. Too late. He flung the door open, screaming into the night. "Come on, you little bastards." The flashlight beam swung across the porch. The children stood shoulder to shoulder, dozens of them, pale faces gleaming, eyes black and wide. The beam landed on one boy standing closest. He couldn't have been older than 6. His jaw was broken, hanging sideways, but he still smiled. Water spilled from his mouth. Then all of them screamed at once. The sound was like air forced through water, a piercing shriek that rattled the cabin walls. Derek dropped the flashlight, clutching his ears. Tiny hands shot forward, dozens at once, pulling him into the night. Jason lunged, but it was useless. Derek's screams cut short, swallowed by the shrieking laughter outside. Jason slammed the door shut. This time, he shoved the entire dresser against it. His heart hammered in his throat. They were 3 now. Hours or maybe minutes passed, time warped in the dark. The children never left. Their laughter rose and fell like waves, sometimes right outside the cabin, sometimes echoing deep in the woods. Leah began sobbing uncontrollably. "We'll never get out, never." Jason tried to speak, but his voice cracked. We just have to make it to morning. Sunlight, they'll go away." But Marcy shook her head, still rocking, eyes vacant. "No, they don't stop. They never stop." And then she looked at Jason and Leah, tears streaking her face. "One of us won't see morning." Jason's blood turned to ice. At some point, exhaustion stole them. Jason didn't remember closing his eyes, but suddenly he was waking in the gray light of dawn. The cabin was quiet, too quiet. He sat up slowly. Leah was gone. Panic surged through him. "Leah?" No answer. The door was open, dresser shoved aside. Faint footprints led out into the dew-soaked grass. Jason stumbled outside, calling her name. The morning fog clung thick around the trees. The creek babbled softly in the distance, almost peaceful. Then he saw her, standing by the water, her back to him. "Leah!" Jason sprinted toward her, relief choking his throat. But when she turned, her skin was pale. Her lips stretched in a smile too wide. Water dripped from her mouth. Jason froze. The laughter returned, rolling out from the trees, from the creek, from everywhere at once. Leah tilted her head, eyes black, and whispered in that gurgling voice, "Stay and play." Jason ran. He didn't care where, just away. Through trees, over rocks, lungs tearing, heartbreaking. He didn't stop until his legs collapsed beneath him. When he woke, he was lying on the dirt road again. The van sat there, door open, keys in the ignition. Morning sunlight streamed through the trees. It was over. It had to be over. The police found him hours later, wandering aimlessly, clothes soaked, eyes wide with shock. He told them what happened, every detail, the laughter, the faces, the hands. They didn't believe him. They never found Derek, or Leah, or Marcy. Jason was the only survivor. But the coroner's report was strange. When they examined him at the hospital, they found his lungs were full of creek water. He hadn't drowned. His body showed no trauma, but his lungs were heavy, saturated, as though he'd been pulled under for hours. And yet he was still alive, for now. The end.